Surat Kumar, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Jaya Guru Raya.
भगवान श्री योगी राम सूरत कुमार की जय। सर्वं योगी राम सूरत कुमारार्पणमस्तु। We have made the submission of the Nama Pushpas, the Nama flowers at the lotus feet of Bhagavan with grateful pranams. Today, I was reading quite a bit, but nothing stayed in my mind. And I went as before, as usual, I went and stood before Bhagavan, begging for something to be passed on to people. Again it went blank. Nothing was coming up. As I was walking towards the Pradhan Mandir, just as soon as I entered, two incidents came up in my mind. They almost jumped out from the depth. Then I knew it was his wish that I speak about it today. Now, in the early years, when I was coming and going, when I was still working in the college, my madness for Bhagavan grew and grew, sometimes out of proportion. I sometimes behaved like a fanatic. I could not stay in my room. I was driven mad by the very thought of that experience which I had in front of Bhagavan the very first time. It was a tremendous experience, and of course it took over. It went into the recesses of the being. How could anybody get over it? As my madness increases in proportion, I somehow longed for only one thing in the world, and that was his darshan. And I would try to find some excuse to go to him. A fellow lecturer had some problem, and so I took her, hoping that we could see Bhagavan and she would be relieved from her burden. So, in the beginning, before I met Bhagavan, if the students should wait for this Friday bell so that they could go home for the weekend, I would make fun of them and I would tell them seriously, why wouldn't you stay for the weekend and study? You have come only to study. And then soon after I met Bhagavan, it was my turn to run fast, even before the students, wait for the Friday bell, and then run through the lobby to board a bus. Of course, the students were watching all the time, and they began to make fun of me, and it was their turn. So here I was one day taking a fellow lecturer, went over to Tiruvannamalai, and the door was closed. Sannadhi Street House door was closed. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. So we went searching for him. We ransacked the whole Arunachaleshwara Mandir, only to return in vain. And then we would come back, wait for some time at the Teridi Mandap, go about searching for him in the vessel shops. So it went on and on in circles till about 8 o'clock in the night. We just could not find him anywhere. The door of the Sannadhi Street house was locked all the time. So, 8 o'clock, we came to know that Swami was found there in Arunachaleshwara Mandir, the front yard. We immediately rushed like mad. The previous day, I had gone to the market and searched for the best varieties of mangoes because I knew Bhagavan loved mangoes. And then I bought some grapes as well. Now the bag was full. We carried it, ran into the mandir, and to our great, great delight, Bhagavan was seated there. From morning, we had been looking for him here and there, and at long last, we found him there. And at those times, I had not much familiarity with Bhagavan's ways. So I did not wait for his nod or anything. We just ran and stood near and then sat. He looked at us and made a gesture to come and sit in the front. So we went there, and because I had seen him after so long a time, in the great excitement of the darshan, I forgot to offer the fruits. I kept the bag nearby. And we were looking on all the time. I had my eyes full of Bhagavan. No other thought entered my mind. I forgot to say anything about my friend's problem also. After about half an hour, he himself, he pulled my bag near him, put his hand inside and picked up some grapes. He started to eat. I was thrilled, to say the least, that he should take the liberty to drag my bag to himself and start eating from there. And soon after that, he didn't touch any of those mangoes. He just pushed it back to me and got up. And there was one man from a nearby village. He wanted a photograph of Bhagavan. So Bhagavan just stood there, nodding his head to him. So we all moved out, stood at a distance, and suddenly this sharp longing to take a photograph with him. You see, I was yet to be used to his ways. I had no idea one should not wish for such things at all. But to my great delight, he gave me a sharp glance and then made a gesture to me to come near. And then he nodded his head to the photographer to take the photograph. I was absolutely delighted. But then I forgot to take the address of the man who took the photograph. For a long, long time to come, I could never find that man. And then Bhagavan said, "This beggar is leaving you. You can go." So we returned. By the time it was 8:30, 8:45. and if you took a bus at that time, it would be middle of the night. We wouldn't be able to get into the hostel. And what was more, we did not talk about my friend's problem at all. So I decided we would stay the night somewhere and go back again to Bhagwan for darshan. But where would we go? The whole Tiruvannamalai was strange to us. Bhagwan was the only one known to us, and we could not go back to Bhagwan's place. So as we were walking down the Sanadi street, I found one of the houses which had a raised platform outside. Immediately I knew that was my place for the night. So I told my friend, don't mind spending it here, let's get some sleep. The door was closed, so people were all inside. The outside was free. So we went and slept there. We wanted to get up early in the morning before they opened the door. It must have been around 4 o'clock. As we were just getting up, the door opened and an elderly lady, an old lady, a widow, came out, and she was shocked to see the two of us seated there and shouted, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And then we promptly answered that we were working in a college. We had come for darshan of Bhagwan. It was late in the night and we couldn't very well go back. So once she was satisfied that we were decent people, then she even called us in because she knew Bhagwan. She used to visit him because just 4 houses away. She began to tell us about Bhagwan and his ways. In the meantime, they gave us water to have a wash and also some coffee to drink. It was very, very nice of them, very kind of them. I still remember it with gratitude. And strangely, after Bhagwan's ashram came up here, those people also shifted to a place very near the ashram. They still visit the ashram from time to time. Now the next day morning, we went there. At that time I had no idea one should not open the gate by oneself, that one should wait for Bhagwan's nod. It was not locked, it was only latched from inside. So I just opened it. And both of us went and sat there, that small veranda. I had no idea I had transgressed my limit, and it would be considered as an excess, and Bhagwan might not like it. And then suddenly a cycle came along, the milkman with his can of milk. He rang the bell, the cycle bell. And then the wooden door opened. You can imagine my heart was pounding. Bhagwan appeared with a mud pot in hand. And he saw us, he gave us a sharp glance, a glance of displeasure on his face. He didn't like it one bit that we had opened the gate, come and sat there. He went straight. Immediately I made a gesture to get the mud pot from him so that I could bring the milk from outside. With one sweep of his hand and one look of dislike, or so I thought, he went straight to the milkman, got the milk, and drank up the whole thing straight away. The raw milk. He just drank up the whole thing. To my surprise, because I had never seen people drink up milk raw. But then I remembered he did not have anything at all, definitely not a stove in his inside. The whole place used to look like a dumping ground. Only dirty clothes and newspapers and some books. some gunny bags and lots of bottles of different sizes and different shapes, all heaped up. And cigarette boxes in one corner, and the currency notes, they would be heaped up also. There would be a small heap of currency notes in one place for all the people to see, and some coins and matchboxes. And I remember he had spread 3 mats for the benefit of the visitors. And I could see all the 3 were in pathetic condition. There were more holes than the mat. And what was more, the holes were filled with dust. Of course, Bhagwan had no time even to bother about these things. He was completely in the beyond. And now, when I saw this look of displeasure on his face, as soon as he drank up that, he just looked at us straight and made a gesture to say, "Go away." He went inside, he locked his door. After all that waiting the previous day and some half an hour spending in that crowd, we felt very incomplete with the darshan, because that is the way we could not understand the deeper meaning of everything, the subtleties of our darshan. We were very raw and physical. We had no idea what was involved in a darshan. So with a sense of incompletion, we returned somewhat crying sometimes that it happened so. But I understood he did not like our staying outside a house in the night. Many times I used to come alone, and that was the only time I think I came with somebody, because the very beginning Bhagwan made it clear that he did not want me to bring anybody with me. So the next time or the time after, it happened that I could not get his darshan and it was getting late and I could not go and land there in Salem in the midnight. So I had to find a place or return somehow. Since I remembered that he did not like my lying down anywhere, I could find this. I took a bus, returned to Salem, and caught the early morning bus and returned once again to Tirunelveli. Because I had simply no place at all to spend the night there and did not know anyone except Bhagwan. And I did not mind coming back the very next day morning. It was the most natural thing for me to do. Such was my longing and eagerness for his darshan. Of course, the next day morning he gave me darshan. And when he learned that I had gone all the way to Salem and come back, he didn't like it. He made it very obvious. There was a way, he wouldn't say it in words, but one could find out, one could know. Somehow it would be communicated to us. And then after that, many darshans. So it came to a certain stage that sometimes he would allow me to sit inside. One day, another friend of mine is an advanced soul, though 5 years younger to me. I always thought she must be a favorite of Bhagwan. She was advanced in spirituality, but we were friends. And I often used to tease her that Bhagwan would accept her services very soon. and that I would be left out. And she would say, no, I see Bhagwan has some love for you. He doesn't have any love for me. So he would choose you. As though Bhagwan was going to choose any of us at all to serve him. We would imagine such things and talk among ourselves, teasing each other. So that day, the two of us had gone to Sannadhi Street House, and there was another group. Shri Dwaraknath Reddy of Raman Nagar, he was the chairman of the Nutrient Confectionaries. He and his daughter Sandhya and a few visitors. He had come with some friends also. So they were seated there, and from Pondicherry, Auditor Ganeshan had come. So it was actually 3 groups, and Bhagwan always took Shri Dwaraknath Reddy inside, straight away. So when he called Dwaraknath Reddy to come inside, he had to call us also, so all of us went inside. And then we were all seated in a row. Then there was a lady who had brought lots of food. So Bhagwan asked Shri Dwaraknath Reddy's daughter Sandhya and my friend who came with me, the 2 of them, to serve everybody. He went and sat as the first one in the row. When we had to arrange ourselves in a row, getting prepared for the meal, there was no room at all for me. So I had to sit in the small room, the passage between the inner hall and the outer veranda. It was a small dark room. It was only a passage. I found myself sitting there because there was no place inside. You can imagine my feeling at the time. I felt very much left out when everybody was seated comfortably with Bhagwan. And I was seated there in the darkness, the semi-darkness of the place. I had to bend forward even to have darshan of him. So these friends started to serve. Every now and then, Bhagwan would lean forward and call out to me and say, "Oh, this beggar is seated first and Devki is seated last." And then he would go into laughter, this peals of laughter, very typical of him, characteristic of him. And then, of course, we all finished our meal. Then, when we gathered again in the hall, Shri Dwaraknath Reddy began to tell Bhagwan about Jai Krishnamurti's video cassette that had come to him. He said, "Swamiji, we all know that you like Jai Krishnamurti very much, you have great respect for him. I happened to get a video on Jai Krishnamurti, which I think Swamiji would love to see. Can we arrange for this here?" Bhagwan was absolutely delighted. He said, "Yes, Dwaraknath Reddy, you try here." And then somebody went out to hire a TV box. And they tried out some of the plugs there and they found that they were not working at all. Bhagwan said, yes, it's always like this here. So what to do, Dwaraknath Reddy? Then Shri Dwaraknath Reddy said, "Swami, let us go to our place in Raman Nagar, Kripa, and we could have it very comfortably arranged there. And I can drop Swamiji back here." Immediately, Bhagwan agreed. When we were all seated there was another curious thing that Bhagwan did. He was walking up and down looking at every one of us and suddenly declared, "Oh, this is a very good group. I'm very happy that all of you have come together. It's a very good group. This beggar is happy." Of course, I had no idea what he was talking about because I had no idea who those people were. But after that, Bhagwan got ready to go. Shri Dwarakanath Reddy brought his car for Bhagwan to board. And then we thought Bhagwan was going to leave us there. And we didn't know what to do. We were only praying. Then Bhagwan, the last minute, just before he boarded the car, he turned and told Shri Ganeshan, Auditor Ganeshan, "You have brought a car, Ganesha. You can bring these two people also to Kripa." So you can imagine the boundless joy that we felt at that we were included also. And then we all pushed off to Kripa, and Shri Dwarakanath Reddy got very busy arranging for this. We were all, they have a beautiful puja room there. It's right in the middle of the garden, and he invited Bhagwan to enter the puja room, and we also were seated there. The TV was all arranged. Sandhya brought out 2 videos. She said one was an Adi Shankara, a Sanskrit film. It's a national film in Sanskrit, on Adi Shankara. The other one was Jai Krishnamurti. And they were going to screen Jai Krishnamurti for the delight of Bhagwan. That's why Bhagwan had come all the way. This is what Bhagwan gave us to understand. But what happened was something else. When Shri Dwarakanath Reddy pulled out one of the 2 and started to play, it was not Jai Krishnamurti that came on, it was Adi Shankara in Sanskrit. Shri Dwarakanath Reddy immediately apologized profusely and said, "Swami, it must be the other one. I shall put it." But Bhagwan said, "No, Dwarakanath Reddy, it is my father's will. Let it run. Please don't change." So, for nearly 1.5 hours or 1 hour, I don't remember, the film ran to its full, and we had, all of us watched the film. And I saw how Bhagwan was watching. He had bent forward, watching everything. Without even moving, his body was very still. Later when I thought about it, it struck me that he might have gone into Samadhi, he might have become still. His body was absolutely still for a few minutes in between. When the film was over, Bhagwan got up immediately and made straight for the car, saying, "Dwarakanath Reddy, this beggar would like to go back now." He went and sat in the car, and within minutes he left, just leaving the 2 of us behind. Shri Ganeshan, Auditor Ganeshan, had already left. So the 2 of us were there, and now there were no more strangers. Sandhya and Shri Dwarakanath Reddy, I began to call him Appa like Sandhya. They were very, very hospitable, very, very nice to us, very loving and kind. They gave us food for the night, arranged for our beds. And then after that, we became close friends, Sandhya and I. And Dwarakanath Reddy became my father. And the next 4 years, almost 3.5 to 4 years, every time I came, I would go straight to their place and stay on. And then slowly I understood that this was Bhagwan's arrangement. The first time I had slept outside some house in the open space. The second time I returned in the middle of the night, took an early morning bus again, came back to Tiruvannamalai. He didn't like all that. So it was his arrangement, his Leela, that he took us and left us there with Sandhya at Kripa. This is one of the Leelas, but that is happening, I should say, was eventful, and there were many subtleties involved. I understood quite a few later on. I also understood when I came to know closer that nothing that he ever did could be taken for granted or light. There was such depth and breadth to it, and everything was purposeful. Every look of his, every word he uttered, every expression on his face, every gesture he made, every step that he took had meaning and purpose. And for years later, he would tell me that Father would put every gesture of his to use for the sake of the world, for the welfare of the world. So I understood that Bhagavan had deliberately played the Leela, but everything happened very spontaneously. There was such divine spontaneity to everything. It was not as if he thought about anything and planned. Everything happened so spontaneously, and everything had a plan behind. And everything was a delightful Leela. It was all that at once. Now, there was another thing that surprised me. I was taken aback when Sri Dwarakanath Reddy was trying to play Krishnamurti, Jai Krishnamurti, but what came on was Adi Shankara. Because for some time I had developed such fondness for Adi Shankara. I had read a lot of Ramana literature and was drawn to Sri Ramana's personality and teachings. And that's how I started to come to Tiruvannamalai. And of course, I became very fond of Adi Shankara's Advaita. It delighted me no end. I read Viveka Chudamani and some of his literature. And we used to tease each other, my friend and myself. It was very strange that when those people had planned and attempted to screen Jai Krishnamurti, what came on was Adi Shankara. Much later I understood the import of all this. There was a Leela in that. There was an arrangement of God in that. And there was an indication. We wouldn't go into the depths of all this, there's no need. But enough to say that I understood. Everything that Bhagavan did was sublime. He could never be taken for granted, and whatever he spoke casually was no casual word. It had depths and hints for the future. Now this Bhagavan is here, right in front of us, and the present scene of the world, it cannot happen for nothing. This must have very deep implications upon the psychology of the world, the collective transformation of the world. Bhagavan followed Sri Aurobindo in his work. Sri Aurobindo had taken up the inhuman labor of lifting the consciousness, the level of consciousness of the entire world to a higher strata. For that, he was doing a lot of deep meditation and working out ways. You can imagine what a hard task it is for a guru to uplift one disciple. What a labor it is. Now to lift up the consciousness of the entire humanity to a high level, somebody called it inhuman labor. It's a lot of slogging, if I could use the word for Mahatmas. And what the present situation, all the difficulties the world is going through, the agony and purification, it is all part of the transformation work these Mahatmas are doing. It is probably concerned with the collective transformation of the entire humanity, because all the securities, the money security, the army security, the position, everything has come to naught. A tiny virus and its family members, its varied strains, they're holding the entire world in its dreadful grip. Making the whole world immobile. How could this possibly happen? And such a big thing to happen in the history of the world is a definite step towards transformation. So Bhagavan knows, of course, when to step in and bring about this work. But for our part, we have to go on chanting His name and praying and praying and praying. Not give up praying. Please do not think that all these prayers have not landed us anywhere. You can never get to guess what is going on in this world, the subtle level. There are so many subtleties involved. The entire world is linked to each other. Every moment. So all that we have to do is go on appealing to His generosity and compassion to step in, to free the entire humanity from the clutches of this tiny virus.
Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ram Surat